Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Me and a movie podcast where you didn't really ask for it, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and anything about movies. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and hey guys, listen, if you were searching on the internet, the interwebs of sorts, even if we were on the dark web somewhere, if you were searching through there, and you came across this movie podcast, and you're not really a movie fan, or, you usually listen to someone else, and you accidentally stumbled across us, and, you're just like, whatever, well, we're going to convince you to be a movie fan, a part of this community. We're going to convince you to do that because that's just what we do. But if you're new to the show, welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome once again. What we typically do if you are new is we'll go over some movie news and some movie trailers that have dropped throughout the week, and we will commentate on them for you guys. And then we will also review some of the movies that drop on the weekend, and then go over the box office results to accompany said films. And so this is episode 215, kind of a light news week and a light trailer week, but we will be reviewing The Death Cure, the third Maze Runner film. That is the main review for today's show. And if you were listening to this and you want to skip straight to the review, I totally understand. Joel and I are not interesting at all. So if you just want to jump straight to the review, then you can do that. The timestamp will be below. And speaking of the Jolsif, Joel, how are we doing this week? We are reaching the end of January, and I have no idea where the month went.
Right. It's insane. It's like time is still moving so fast. It's been such an eventful month for the world. Just crazy. There's already been 11 mass shootings. There's been a bunch of weather stuff that's happened, a bunch of political stuff, and a bunch of movies coming out. It was like, I think Mark was saying, there's just too many movies coming out at this point. And except for this weekend, it's like almost completely just The Death Cure. That's pretty much it. So yeah, it's been a crazy ride, and including for me, this weekend was eventful to say the least. I had a small accident, and very small. It was essentially the car crash version of a light tap. I did get my headlight broken, but minimal damage to the other car and to mine. Everybody's okay. And it was actually like the nicest version of a car crash you could have because the other person was completely understanding. The policeman was too. And anyway, so it was the most eventful thing that happened to me this week. And how was your week, Chase? Was it as dramatic?
It was pretty good, but I have a bone to pick with you. When Joel said he was in an accident, of course, I automatically just assume, like, are you okay or whatever? And he's like, this is what he texts back to me. And he's going to deny this, but whatever. He texts back when he goes, do you remember that snowmobile chase in Spectre, the James Bond movie? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I got into a car wreck, and it was exactly like that. And so I was wondering if Joel knocked his head into a weird concussion where he was just spouting off stuff, or like what was going on. And he started saying like his car crash was cool and it was like set in the snow, and I'm like, Joel's going off the deep end, and like I said, he's going to deny it, but
I swear, Stephen, that I am in utter reality. President Clooney is the best president.
Oh my God! Can I live on that reality with you? Joel's a little fender bender. It is what it is. We've all been there.
I had one last year, and this was much less bad. So and that one wasn't even all that bad. So it's just kind of.
We're happy that you didn't get in a Spectre accident, and we can move on. But it is what it is. But my week, it's been pretty chill. I finished up episodes on Netflix, and I had a great time watching it. I'm trying to watch more Netflix movies and not just their TV shows or whatever they acquire from like Showtime or whatever. So. Been an interesting week indeed, but you're right, it's been kind of dead, because I saw The Death Cure last week, so there was really nothing going on this week. It was just one of those weeks where everyone was hiding in their homes like hermits, and it was like a deserted ghost town everywhere you went. I was like, wow, it must be the end of January. But January has gone by so fast that I think it's actually okay for us to put up a missing sign on a milk carton or something. Because this whole month was just like just whizzed by. Like, I don't think people realize this, but February 1st is on Thursday. It's like, what are we... We're like in some weird Twilight Zone dimension because I don't even know what's happening anymore. But you know what is happening?
Crazy. I mean, I've already seen, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 movies this year.
Good God.
And it doesn't even feel like it should be possible. But, yeah.
Well, that makes me feel really bad because I've only seen like 5 or 6. But then again, you guys know that Joel does the mini stuff, and that's just what he does. And, you know, speaking of movies, let's talk about some because, you know, this is a pretty light week. But before we begin, please spread this around, like, share, favorite, subscribe. Do what you have to do to let people know this is the definitive movie podcast for your listening experience. And, I'm excited to jump into the news because, you know, when I think of John Cena, Joel, this is now a WWF podcast or WWE, whatever. John Cena to me is just one of those guys. He's charismatic whenever he comes on stage, and you know people love him. People love him in those wonderful shorts that make him look like he's a 12-year-old that got lost in a closet somewhere, and he came out with no shirt on and some shorts, and John Cena is just. He's just a good guy, the voice of Ferdinand, an Oscar-nominated animated movie, and he's a part of that. So now he's caliber now. He is a part of the Hollywood elite, and he just can't go back. I have no idea what I'm talking about, but what I can tell you is that John Cena. I always said this from the get-go when we heard about him voicing Ferdinand, is that once that movie was going to blow up, which it didn't, by the way, but once it was going to blow up, he was going to be, that Dwayne Johnson level, because he was the second basically in command in terms of the WWE when The Rock was there, and now that Dwayne is not there anymore, John Cena is the face of the WWE. It makes sense. He's very likable and charismatic, and I can see people gravitate towards him. Now, after Ferdinand, we were like, what is he going to do? Well, it sounds like Paramount and Platinum Dunes, which is the Michael Bay owned company, are tapping him to play Duke Nukem. Okay. All right, so here's the deal, folks. When you think of like a Duke Nukem game, you think of someone that is foul-mouthed, just sex-driven, he does drugs. He's just a bad influence, okay? When you think of John Cena, you don't think of any of those things. So I don't know why they're tapping John Cena to do this. It'd be kind of cool to see him go a little raunchy, which would be ironic because if this movie is a success and he's actually really good in the role, then his raunchy attempt will be way better than whatever Dwayne Johnson tried to attempt with Baywatch. So this is weird. Paramount is off their rocker and they're off their meds. He's got the to be honest with you, he's got the physical appearance of like a Duke Nukem, but
you just dye the hair and that's basically it.
Give him sunglasses. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, okay. But the thing is with John Cena, he hasn't proven enough to be like a leading man. Now, people are going to start yelling at me, oh, he's done 12 rounds in the Marine, but the problem is he's not commercial with movie-going audiences. Dwayne Johnson.
Those movies barely made any money.
Yeah,
those are small. Now, of course, they didn't cost very much, but they weren't successful hits. They weren't screened for critics. There was no buzz about them whenever they were coming out. I remember when the Marine came out, and the reason that I remember is because all of a sudden it was out. I never saw any trailers for it, and it was the same thing with 12 rounds. I was wondering, what is this 12 rounds thing, and why is a WWF star in it? That was back when it was the Federation. And yeah, I mean, it totally, like, those movies are very, very like below radar, under the radar kind of wide releases, but just not wide releases that aren't wide releases. That's what I like to call them.
Well, the weird thing that with John Cena is that I don't think he is a leading man or like leading man material, so this is a weird choice. However, I will say that he's actually pretty decent because I've actually liked him in his supporting roles in these comedies in the past few years. I'm going to tell you right now, what was that movie with Amy Poehler and Tina Fey's sisters?
Yeah.
That movie was terrible, but his part was funny. He was like all tatted up as like this beefy bodyguard, and like every single line of dialogue was cringeworthy humor, but it worked because it's him, and he can make cringeworthy dialogue sound at least decent. So, and then Trainwreck, he was funny in Trainwreck.
Funny,
so yeah, he's got comedic chops, and so maybe that will play into Duke Nukem because he's kind of like he's like that raunchy, foul mouth, almost like Deadpool type of character. It's almost like if you mix Deadpool and Cable together, like in the Deadpool movies, that's who Duke Nukem is. So it could work, but at the same time, it is batshit crazy, as the pundits would put it. So, Joel, does this... I mean, first of all, we don't ever really talk about video games. Did you even play Duke Nukem growing up? And like, what is this?
No, I wasn't allowed to. Conservative parents and all that. I was aware of it. Obviously, it was fairly popular in its day. It's not so much anymore, which is part of the reason why I feel like this feels a bit irrelevant to me. But also, like as I wrote in our notes for the week, with Cena playing Duke Nukem, literally nothing has ever made more sense in the history of the world. He has exactly the physicality to play this character. But the problem is that Deadpool exists in the movie world now, and I feel like we have a character who's irreverent and politically incorrect, and an action star, and commercially viable. That yes, Duke Nukem could be commercially viable in that market, but he's going to feel completely irrelevant, and because we already have Deadpool, and it's just going to feel like they're going to be repeating off Deadpool, even if they aren't. Even if they announce like we're not going to be like Deadpool, it's gonna feel like they're answering to Deadpool with this kind of thing. Certainly I'll be interested to see what Platinum Dunes of all companies does with this character. But you're right. I mean, it's so weird that they're bringing this character, trying to bring this character back. It also feels like we, right now, in the culture that we have, we don't really need this movie. Feels a bit jingoistic, bit odd to me that we could potentially have this character because, politically incorrect comes with almost every one of the descriptors that come with that. So I don't know. It's an interesting story for sure. But in terms of the John Cena casting, nothing has ever made more sense. If they were trying this, for years with Dwayne Johnson, since around the time Doom came out, I believe, and but it never took shape. So now he's a bit of he's a star, but he's not really doing R-rated action anymore. So they got to go to somebody else, and I guess it makes sense that they would go to John Cena. And I mean, it's kind of perfect. He looks very much like him. So you just dye his hair and put sunglasses on him. So I'll be interested to see how this takes shape.
Yeah, it's one of the. It's also very weird because whether people deny it or not, the WWE is more of a family brand, and I'm just kind of baffled that his management team is okay with him going into this like Deadpool territory with his image. Like, how is that going to translate to his career when he goes back to the WWE, like post Duke Nukem? I don't know. It's just maybe he's on his way out. Maybe he's ready to kind of retire WWE, and he told his agent or manager or whatever, and maybe they got him this gig because they want to try to transition him into R-rated stuff, because Trainwreck and Sisters were R-rated, but those were so small and so bit in roles that people didn't really see them or whatever. But this is a big type of role that, I mean, obviously could go very well or go very sour. But I thought Ferdinand was going to do it, but maybe this is the one to change his career, because if his management team is trying to get him to that Dwayne the Rock Johnson level, it's possible, because he's the second most kind of watched character behind the Rock right now in terms of wrestling. So, good luck to him. I mean, if he wants to transition into the movies and stuff, because he's already an actor. He is a stage actor as of right now. Yes, that is called acting, the WWE.
Fans. Oh, yeah.
So
they are performances.
Yeah, so, Yeah.
There's a friend of mine on Facebook who has been for years championing the fact that WWE performers have been going into movies and stuff, and with like Dwayne Johnson actually singing with Moana and all that. And he's like, one, I'm not surprised because it's one gigantic bit of performance art, and two, do you realize how much charisma a person has to have to maintain this level of just all of this stuff? They have to be in shape, but they also have to have tons and tons of charisma, and most of them seem to have it. Dave Bautista,
yeah.
really, really, really good as Drax. Like he's terrific, and he's a great screen presence physically. John Cena, a lot of fun when he makes fun of himself. Like in Trainwreck, where he's like, I'm as if Mark Wahlberg ate Mark Wahlberg and all that. I love that. I love that line, and I love the self-deprecation. And Dwayne Johnson's been terrific for a while, even if his movies aren't. So, I mean, it's not surprising that these people are movie stars because they're TV stars already.
Yeah.
And they are performing in front of a lot of people, a bunch of stuff that honestly, once I don't regularly watch the stuff, but I'll watch the occasional performance, and knowing now that it's just performance art, it's kind of trashy fun, and it's neat to see these people with tons of charisma turning that into movie stardom, because it's the perfect outlet. And so it's just following a script essentially, with dialogue this time. So
yeah, and what's really funny about this story? This is not the worst bit of news. The next bit of news is the worst thing I've heard in quite some time. Okay, so Paramount, let me get something straight. You're going to have a green light on a Duke Nukem movie, but you're going to shove the third Cloverfield movie onto Netflix. That makes no sense to me. Because, yes, they are from the same distribution studio. So, we're going to call it God Particle right now, because that was its kind of working name. It's going to be changed, but it's the third Cloverfield film. It's going to be dumped on Netflix in April. Why? If you look at the budget for the first one and even 10 Cloverfield Lane, they're minimal budget. Like, we're talking Jason Blum type of budgets where it's like $10 million or less, and they did pretty well at the box office. I remember 10 Cloverfield Lane being a hit last year, or not last 2 years ago. And so this makes no sense to me. Like, you're going to be... I just don't understand, like, how you make money from Netflix. Yeah, they purchased the rights from you, but, like, what's the... like, is this going to be a better transaction than if you were just releasing in theaters than releasing on VOD and Blu-ray and stuff? It doesn't make any sense to me, because Cloverfield is the type of theater experience. It's that type of mysterious, anthology movie that I've enjoyed watching in the theater. If you watch Cloverfield at home, I'm not saying you're going to get the worst experience ever, but it's better if you watch that movie on the big screen. It's a monster movie. 10 Cloverfield Lane. Yes, the first 3/4 of it were claustrophobic, basement torture, but it's still made for a good theater experience, and especially when you have like a good presence like a John Goodman, it was a great time. So this being dumped on Netflix it makes me so angry, because I actually love this franchise, and I wish I could watch it in theaters, because I will pay money gladly to go see this quote unquote God Particle in theaters, but unfortunately we got to get it on Netflix. It could be a better business deal, and money wise I have no clue, because Netflix doesn't disclose like how kickbacks are done, and is it per view, is it per it could be on the YouTube model. I have no clue how Netflix does anything, because they keep everything so secret. Yeah. But if Paramount's willing to dump this on them because they offered them a lot of money, to me it doesn't make any sense, because it seems like they can make more in theaters, and especially on streaming, because I'll guarantee you that 10 Cloverfield Lane, yes, did well in theaters, but it probably did even better on streaming. So I have no clue what they're thinking, but maybe, Joel, do you have a different viewpoint? Like, is this a good thing for them to release it on Netflix?
No, it's the most baffling bit
Oh,
of
okay.
news I've heard
So we're on the
heard in a
same page.
while.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I don't understand this. I mean, maybe part of it is because we don't know how Netflix works, and maybe it is a good business strategy. I just don't know because it's so strange that they would do this. You know, and it's especially strange because this sounds like a more traditionally theater friendly movie than 10 Cloverfield Lane was. I mean, there was, you know, a lot of great use of enclosed spaces in 10 Cloverfield Lane, but that's part of the point. You know, you could easily watch it at home just because it's so insular. But this is going to be taking place in space, so you know it's baffling to me that they would do this. I would
So
ease.
I have a question. Do you think they got spooked because Life didn't do that well last year, or was that 2 years ago?
That was last year.
Yeah. So
that was last year.
Do you think they got just spooked because of that?
I don't know. I don't know how much that stuff really makes any impact, or whether they were even watching, you know, the box office intake of Life. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, they could easily also watch the box office intake of Gravity if they wanted to. I'm not sure. You could watch anything in
Yeah,
terms
because
of that.
Gravity did super well for a space movie.
Yeah, yeah, very well for non franchise space movie.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Maybe I guess you know it's been moved around a lot, so maybe they just felt like they wanted to get it out there finally. You know, it was supposed to come out. It was supposed to come out this coming weekend. I mean, not originally, but it was for a while coming out this coming weekend, and then it was moved to April, and then now it's you know a Netflix original in April. So I don't know. Is it April or March? I can't remember. Anyway,
One of those months.
yeah, some before the summer starts. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's very strange to me that they would do this, but
So
I guess
what's really funny, when you sent me the notes, I didn't even notice this until Deadline is breaking this news. But Netflix, or they've been hearing things that Netflix will actually drop a Super Bowl trailer for God Particle during the Super Bowl to get more awareness for it. And I think that's actually a genius idea. So I don't know. After hearing that, do you think you'd be okay with this now?
no.
You know that like millions of people watch the Super Bowl. So I mean, if they're going to do this, which already sucks to begin with, I mean, you might as well throw everything into advertising on this movie because I want people to see this. So if this is how they're going to do it, I mean,
I guess
that's cool. I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's sort of a double-edged sword, though. Just
Yeah.
anything involving marketing is a double-edged sword, generally speaking. I think, but because you never know what the actual motivation behind it is.
True.
Or you do, and it's very clear, and it's not very befitting of business practices. But seriously, it's strange. It's very weird.
Well, you know what, Joel?
I don't know what
we
to
don't
make of
know Netflix's secretive motives because they just keep everything so damn secretive. But
it's a conspiracy.
everything's a conspiracy with Netflix. So yeah, the next story, actually the next few stories, I'm totally cool with. Charlie Kaufman, the writer behind Adaptation, being John Malkovich, and even most recently with Anomalisa, which was a really great stop motion movie. I highly suggest to everyone check out actually all of his films, including Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. The guy is just a genius writer, one of the most unique ones out there. So he's actually going to write and direct a film adaptation of the best-selling novel I Am Thinking of Ending Things for Netflix. Now, usually when I do these stories, I like to give you guys a little bit of the synopsis. So this one reads as follows. On a road trip to meet his parents on their secluded farm, Jake's girlfriend is thinking of ending things. When Jake makes an unexpected detour, leaving her stranded, a twisted mix of palpable tension, psychological frailty, and sheer terror ensues. Yeah. The thing with Charlie Kaufman when I read this story is that I was thinking he's made suspenseful movies, but they're more they're more drama related. Now, when you read the synopsis, yes, this is going to be very internal, very psychological, but that's the key word right there. Psychological. I don't think and Joel's going to probably correct me because Joel's seen everything under the face of the sun.
So you're going to have to be very careful because I know elements of adaptation, but I have not seen it.
Ooh, so I've actually seen a movie that Joel hasn't. That's nice.
Yeah. So don't speak any like explicitly about that.
No. I was just going to say that all the movies that I've seen him do so far are more like not a psychological attack, but more of like an emotional attack on like relationships or life in general, pondering life. Especially Schenectady, New York, is one of those ones that makes you kind of reflect on time and just passage of time and just life in general. So this is what's strange to me, is that he's going to be doing more of a psychological thriller, and that's kind of cool because he's one of those writers that doesn't matter what he does, I'm always interested because he always has a unique take on them. And so, Joel's, he's got his thoughts, but I've never had a bad experience with any of his movies that I've seen so far. And maybe I'm just weird like that, because I have seen, like I said, 5 of his movies so far, and I've enjoyed all of them. But this sounds like a cool little departure for him. But apparently Joel is seething at the mouth over there to tell me why I'm wrong. And
No, I'm not. But go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I'm cool with this. I have nothing more to say.
Yeah, no, I am too. I've seen everything. I think, in terms of what he's written and or directed. I think I've seen everything except for Human Nature and Adaptation, which I think came out the same year. In Human Nature, I can't remember who directed that one, but it's got, I think, Patricia Arquette or Rosanna Arquette, some sort of Arquette. And then Adaptation is one that I keep beating myself up over the fact that I have not seen it because it seems so down my alley. That was so... if y'all don't know, I know this. I don't know what happens in the movie, so nobody tell me in any of the comments. It's one that I want to watch, but I know that he was asked to adapt The Orchid Thief, and then the movie became about like him adapting The Orchid Thief with his imaginary twin brother. So keep in mind that, yes, while he's adapting I'm Thinking of Ending Things, this is Charlie Kaufman adapting I'm Thinking of Ending Things. We don't know what this is going to look like. We don't know if it's going to be the movie or a Charlie Kaufman version of that movie, which will be probably completely different than everything you just said. So just keep that in mind, and also keep in mind the fact that the only movie he's solo directed is Synecdoche, New York. So because he co-directed Anomalisa and everything else he's written. So just keep that in mind because we don't know what's in store here. He's not done psychological horror or thriller, whatever this is. I will say, though, that a colleague of mine out in D.C. is a horror aficionado. His name is Dustin Putman, thefilmfile.com. Go read his stuff. And he's a big horror aficionado. This guy's seen, a lot of horror movies. And he's read a lot of horror novels, and I know he's played with the idea of writing some, and I don't know. Anyway, this is his he's said that this is possibly his favorite horror novel of all time.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, I'm super excited. And he just about died at the news cuz he loves Charlie Kaufman. So, I'm excited for him, and just, his praise of the novel, he called it just about the most frightening read he's ever had. So that's a high praise, and I can't wait to see how this all shapes up. This might be my favorite bit of news this week. Actually,
interesting. I'm actually I will agree.
Being John Malkovich is a miracle of a movie, and he wrote that one. Spike Jonze directed it. But yeah, that one, Eternal Sunshine, is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
That's one that my brother bought me for Christmas thinking that I'd seen it, and I hadn't. So greatest blind gift I've ever gotten, just about. Because I then watched it about 10 times over the course of the next 5 days. Um,
It's one of the best movies to watch after a breakup. I'm not even joking. I've
oh,
done that
really?
three. I've done it 3 times now, and you would think that like, oh, that's really depressing. It's actually not. It's actually therapeutic for me. So,
Interesting.
yeah,
Well, I can see that. I mean, it's very observant. And it's the my second favorite Jim Carrey performance.
yeah.
So, and if you guys can't figure out what my favorite is, I give up. Uh,
I think we have the same favorite because I have the same
the Truman
three.
Show.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I go Truman Show, Eternal, and then Man on the Moon.
I haven't seen Man on the Moon. That's the one
Okay.
that I need to see. But I go those two, and then Liar Liar,
Gotcha.
which is I think a great performance.
There's nothing wrong.
Anyway, we're getting way off track.
Well, that's okay, Joel. Like it's like you said. It's like we have a slow news day, so whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
However, I'm excited about the Charlie Kaufman thing. I'm actually equally as excited. I don't know how Joel feels about this. About the next story with Mike Flanagan to helm Stephen King's The Shining sequel called Doctor Sleep. Now, this is going to be made from Warner Brothers, which makes total sense because they did the Stephen King adaptation with It last year. They are on a roll, and ironically, Mike Flanagan also directed a Stephen King adaptation last year, Gerald's Game, which was a Netflix release. I actually really enjoyed that quite a bit. And he's done the Ouija sequel, which was really great, and he had a new one come out a couple weeks ago that was in limbo for like 500 years called Before I Wake, and that was actually really good too. He's actually
Yeah, I like that one.
yeah. I mean, he kind of reminds me of how James Wan started in horror, like way back in the day with like Insidious and Saw and Conjuring, where it's like this guy has a unique vision for horror, and I'm totally down for whatever he's directing. Oh wait, here we go. He's gonna be directing the sequel to The Shining. That's awesome. And listen, I knew this book existed, but I had no idea what it was about. So it follows Danny, the kid from The Shining, and he's in his 40s and he's struggling with the same kind of inner demons and alcoholism as, his father went through the original, the trauma of the Overlook, when he was a kid, it's going to kind of, bleed into his adulthood. This is awesome, man. Are you kidding me? Like, Mike Flanagan, to me, has never made a bad movie. Now, some of his movies might be a little less in quality than others to some people, but for me, I think he's been solid as a horror director throughout his career. He's always been consistent, and even with something with like Before I Wake, which he himself doesn't even consider a horror film, it's more of like a suspenseful drama. It's true. Like when you watch that movie, and you're like, "Wow, this is completely different from the poster and the trailer." So, and that's no side note. Whoever's doing the marketing for his movie, please market his movie correctly. That's all I'll tell you. Because Before I Wake was not a horror film.
Yeah, no, that poster is completely utterly misrepresentative.
It's so
totally
bad.
wrong.
But
yeah,
with Stephen King, I'm hoping that they're not idiots and they can market it correctly.
Yeah.
But with this news, I'm super excited. The fact that they're giving Mike Flanagan, someone who's this up-and-coming horror director, to give this a shot, dude, sign me up. I don't need to say anymore. And I guess this is a great chance to kind of highlight his movies he's done. I would recommend everything he's done so far. Even a lot of people have a problem with the last 10 minutes of Gerald's Game. I don't find a problem with it. I think it's a great psychological thriller. Before I Wake is a great psychological drama. Even the Ouija sequel was better than I thought it would ever be. Got some really creative uses of jump scares.
Hush was terrific.
Hush was Hush and Ouija came out in the same year. So
yeah.
And Hush actually came out the same year as Don't Breathe, which was the other disability home break-in movie. But yeah, he's just a fresh voice in this genre, and he, like I say, he reminds me of James Wan, how he kind of came up and had his own unique vision. This is fantastic news. Joel, please gush away. And also, to throw it out there, what if you had to just pick one of his movies so far, which one is your favorite so far?
I have only seen Hush and Before I Wake.
You didn't see the Ouija sequel?
No, because I just didn't make time for it. I heard it was great, but I heard it was great like way into the process of scheduling that week out, and it just didn't happen. And I just haven't caught up.
Gerald's Game last year?
No.
Oh.
I meant to watch the two other Stephen King movies that came out around the time, because there were four like all at the same time. There was The Dark Tower, which of course we reviewed, It, which we reviewed, and then the two Netflix ones, Gerald's Game in 1922, which I didn't see either of those. Here's the thing. Here's what needs to happen. Two things need to happen. One of the things is on us. We need to, whatever this is, we need to separate it as best as we can from The Shining, because Stanley Kubrick is like no other director ever to live or have lived or will live. So
did
Did
you even catch it? Like, I didn't even mention The Shining. I'm talking like I will view this as its own separate thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's very important that happened. However, having said that, what Netflix and or Mike Flanagan need to do is they need to go to Elizabethtown, Kentucky. They need to go to the community college there. They need to talk to the biology professor, whose name is Danny Lloyd, and they need to get him to come back to acting as Danny Torrance in The Shining, because that's what he's doing now. He's a biology professor at Elizabethtown Community College in Kentucky, and because I think that would be a lot of fun to have him come back in that role. Especially so long after the role, kind of took him into places that he did one movie after that, and that was it. He only did two movies ever, and part of it was because of the process of shooting The Shining was so stressful. He was made to believe that he was not acting in a horror movie, which is very interesting. So. Anyway, the whole making of The Shining is absolutely fascinating, including the fact that Simon Cowell was a runner on that movie. Yes, the Simon Cowell of American Idol was a runner on that movie. He was a runner for I think one of the production designers. Anyway, the whole story of that movie, the filming of it, fascinates me, but we do need to separate at least as best as we can from that experience, because there's not going to be very many experiences like it. I know nothing about Dr. Sleep. I didn't know the plot until you just told me. So that's going to be fascinating to see all that happen. And I have to wonder if this is going to be Netflix, because they've got a good relationship with him. He's adapted two Stephen King books for them, or I mean just one, but just one, but still, they've had Stephen King adaptations been put on there. So I don't know. This will be interesting to see this all take place.
When I was looking up his filmography, I totally forgot he did Oculus as well.
Yeah, I didn't see that one either.
It was good.
Yeah. Okay.
Joel, you need to get on Mike Flanagan.
Well, that weekend was all about Under the Skin for me. So Under the Skin, and yeah, I believe that was it. That was the one movie that I saw, and I didn't see anything else, because Rio 2 opened, and anyway, but Under the Skin was the weekend of that for me, because I was super excited. I skipped over Oculus, so I do need to catch up on Mike Flanagan. I liked Hush. I liked Before I Wake. So I've been impressed by those two. I'd put them around on the same level, I guess. I don't know if one's better than the other particularly, but I did like both. So
I think you'll like his others, because like I said, he's very consistent. Like, they're all good movies. Like, I don't think he's ever made like a stinker. It's just like he's just always consistent, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, he just, every time when he comes out with a new film, it's like, oh man, is this gonna be the one where he slips or he's gonna lose his edge? It's like, no, it's just like they continue to just be consistent. They get better in their own right. It's like, you know what, you do you, Mike Flanagan. All right, so the last piece of news, Steven Spielberg is gonna do the next Indiana Jones movie. Yeah, no shit. All right, moving on. So the real story here, well, I mean, Joel can talk about that, because he's probably more of a fan than I am at that movie and the movie we're about to talk about, because I've actually never seen the original. Oops, sorry. He's going to be tapped to do the West Side Story remake. Haven't seen the original, but it seems like this is what Spielberg does. He has 2 movies that come out every single year. He does one blockbuster, and he does one historical movie or a serious movie. It's like, this is his MO now. Like, this is what the Spielberg does. So I'm going to actually let Joel take this one over, because I've never seen the original West Side Story. It seems like a good fit, I guess. But in terms of the Indiana Jones movie, makes sense to me. I know a lot of people don't like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I could care less. Like, I like, the original 3. I've just never been like a huge fan of the franchise to where it bothered me that much. But Joel, I mean, do you feel differently? Do you think they should get a different director for that? And then for the West Side Story, is he a right fit?
I actually haven't seen West Side Story either. That's a horrible blind spot. I know that I need to see it. So I don't know.
We're terrible,
I guess if
movie critics.
Right, I know. So I guess if he wants to tackle a musical, be my guest. Whatever. I don't have any feelings about that, just because I haven't seen the original. So I'd have more feelings if he was like remaking The Sound of Music or something. I don't know.
Is this the first musical he's done?
Pretty sure. I know that he had. I've never seen 1941, but I know he had a musical sequence in that. That's what I've heard. I haven't even seen the sequence. I've seen nothing from 1941. But it's also his least popular movie, generally speaking. So I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to return to that. But if he does, he's getting up there, so he might as well try it. I know it's a very long movie, so I don't know if he's going to go for that length. But yeah, I don't really have any feelings about West Side Story. As far as Indiana Jones goes, he's the director who's made it. I kind of wish that he would Han Solo Indiana Jones out of the franchise, and make it about somebody else. Maybe make it a James Bond situation where somebody else is just named Indiana Jones and they're a different person. I don't know. And I don't say that because I disliked Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I've actually sincerely been a big fan of all 4 of them. I just think that Harrison Ford is getting up there and seems to care less about these franchise roles as the years go by. I would rather see a Witness sequel with Harrison Ford as a very much older John Book, because Witness is a great movie, or catch up with his character from The Fugitive, or I don't know, something like that, rather than something like this, because it feels like he just doesn't care. He was great as Han Solo in Star Wars, but you watch interviews about it and he just seemed tired. He just seemed tired of it. And so that's kind of what I hope happens. But, we'll see. Spielberg's the right director to take it on, though, I think. Just because I think that it's, he made the series. At some point he'll pass it on, I'm sure. But right now, while he's living and able to make movies, I think that he should be the one to make the movie. It wouldn't bother me if somebody else did it, just because, I'm not somebody who thinks that way. But yeah, I kind of wish he does it. So.
It's very possible that Harrison Ford doesn't like Star Wars or Indiana Jones, and the only reason I say this is because when I was watching the Directors Roundtable with the Hollywood Reporter, Denis Villeneuve was on there, and he was talking about his experience with Harrison on Blade Runner 2049, and he was saying that Harrison was so excited, and this might just be a PR move, but whatever, I'm just going to take his word for it because Denny seems like a swell dude. He says, Harrison was so excited to be on set and so excited to, do this character again. And if you look at his performance in Blade Runner 2049, it is infinitely better than I would agree that
it's a lot more committed. Yeah. I would agree with that. The scenes that he has and what he's doing, particularly in that creepy scene with Jared Leto.
Oh, I know.
So where good. Both of them are playing off of each other. Of course, Jared Leto is saying dialogue, but they're both clearly in that moment. They're playing off of each other really well.
So maybe we know that Harrison Ford just from that statement, maybe his favorite franchise to work with was Blade Runner.
Yeah, I mean, I know that he loved shooting that movie.
Yeah.
It's well documented that he had a great time on that set. So, with Ridley and all of it, he loved making Blade Runner. So it may have been that, Star Wars, he had made three of them. He had wanted to exit the series before it was over. So it may have been that, one of those things where he had fun for a while, and then, when he was coming back, he had a brief amount of fun, but it just wasn't something that he was super invested in, and that's clear in interviews. Whereas, he was interviewed a couple of times for Blade Runner, and he seemed more excited about it.
Yeah.
He did. He seemed more enthusiastic. He had more to say about his character. Of course, he had more to say that he could say about his character in Blade Runner than he could say about Han Solo leading up to it. But even after the movies came out, comparing them, it's like apples to oranges. He seemed more invested in the whole aura surrounding Blade Runner 2049, even when he couldn't remember Ryan Gosling's name. On Graham Norton. It just seems like he was more invested in it, and I feel like it's the same way with Indiana Jones. The interviews that he had after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out weren't super enthusiastic. He was happy to be back in the role, but it felt to me like he felt that it was an obligation. And, this fifth one coming out, that's going to be 12 years after the last one, probably. It just definitely feels like he's probably going to just find it a bit of a waste.
Well, and that's why people are listening right now are like, why are you guys talking about Blade Runner? It's like, this is important because if he's not enthusiastic about this 50 Indiana Jones, then Joel's right. Just pull like a James Bond or something and cast someone else, because if he's
I'm going to say it, and I'm going to draw some ire. You're going to get some comments, and I apologize for this. But of course, Chase doesn't care, as he just said. I think bring back Shia LaBeouf. I know that he hated shooting the movie with Spielberg, but if Spielberg stops directing the series, then maybe get LaBeouf back in, say, this is going to be a bit different, and then just get him back in as Mutt Williams, make him the new Indiana Jones, and follow his character, because it's a solid character. I maintain that, and of course now everybody's just stopped listening. But
hey,
yeah,
listen,
that's my opinion.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again to end the new segment. Shia LaBeouf is a great actor. He just does some stupid shit. All right, so
Right.
yeah, so the favorite news story of the week. I mean, Joel, you're going with Kaufman.
Yeah.
I agree. I like that and the Mike Flanagan thing are tied, but Charlie Kaufman, he's a
visionary.
best.
Mike Flanagan's career is well underway.
Yeah.
But he hasn't. I don't think he's directed anything that's been as good as
No, Charlie Kaufman.
Synecdoche, New York, or Anomalisa. I mean, I've only seen two of his movies, but it seems like he's a very solid director. Kaufman's a visionary, and that's why it's my favorite bit of news.
Yeah, Kaufman's on a whole different level. Like, if you guys have never seen any Kaufman movie, whether he directed, co-directed, or written, please treat yourself. He is such a weird dude in how he approaches his movies, but they're just so damn intriguing. So that is
what
news,
have you
guys.
been doing with your life if you've
Yeah.
not seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless
Oh
Mind?
God, Eternal Sunshine. Joel's right; it's one of the best of all time. But I mean,
Yeah.
please let us know what is your favorite down below. Now, the trailers this week. Joel decided to. He denies this, but I'm gonna go ahead and just say it. He denies going on the deep web and searching for these trailers, because I had no idea these trailers even existed in the light of day until he sent me the notes, and I had to watch all 5 of them. So, and one of them is so batshit crazy that it makes Nicolas Cage look somber. All right, so Joel's got the first one. Joel, what in the hell is The Cured?
Yeah, so The Cured is the latest sort of zombie drama, I'll call it that, because this is not a big, where they're lumbering around and people are shooting them and it's a lot of action. It's more along the lines of stuff like Maggie and The Girl with All the Gifts. It stars Ellen Page, and this one seems to be more of a character study to me, set within a world where there's a zombie virus and there are certain people who are immune, or there are certain people who are cured from it. And Ellen Page plays possibly one of the cured. And so this one looks pretty intriguing. It doesn't tell you a lot about the plot, but it looks intriguing to me, and it comes out. It's a VOD release. It's going to be on February 23rd, I believe. So yeah, I was super intrigued, and yeah, Chase, I totally went on the deep web and found all these. No, I honestly, like, this week was so empty of big, like, significant trailers that I was having to scrounge. I usually use collider.com to find mine, so literally I went to their trailers tab on their website, and from the time of like Friday or yesterday morning when I was making the notes, and the last trailer that we had talked about, there were maybe 10 trailers in all. So then I had to figure out what I was going to use. And also I had realized that the next one we were going to talk about was one that came out a month ago, and I had forgotten to put it in the notes. So, or it fell out because of a busy week or something. So, so there was that one, and then I had to figure out 4 others. But the problem was that there were these 4, which were the ones except for this next one, and there were 6 others, and the 6 others had like 3 Netflix series, 2 TV dramas, and then one like tiny little thing that didn't even seem like it was going to be coming out in any capacity. So I was just like, okay, well, I might as well put these on here, and Chase is probably going to wonder what I'm talking about because they are very, very under the radar. I even went to IMDb and couldn't find the 4th one that is listed, Chase, on their recent trailers. So that's how tiny that one was, and that was the one that I decided to put in. But anyway, in any case, yes, this first one is The Cured. It seems to be sort of a more kind of a drama than an action movie. We didn't really see any action in this trailer that I can recall. It looks more like a drama that just happens to be set within the zombie apocalypse, and I'm very intrigued by that. So, what did you think of this?
Spoiler alert, I actually like all 5 of these trailers for different reasons. All right, so this one I like purely because of the premise. Now, we've seen zombie dramas before. Joel listed off a bunch of them. We got The Walking Dead on TV right now. But this one takes an interesting approach on how some people that might be infected will literally come back from the dead and have to, rejoin society, even though some people might know that person, when infected, killed some people. And it's like, how do you go back into society knowing that? And that's there's an interesting moral kind of aspect to that. It's going to be very interesting to see if they actually try to, explore some of that. Hopefully they do. Hopefully they don't just go with, fake kind of false drama. Hopefully that's the thing that they try to explore, and it's a very interesting idea. Well, exactly, and like even the IMDb synopsis, states it tackles like social issues, and I think that's awesome. Like, because when the trailer started, I was like, oh god, another zombie drama. Like, I like a zombie drama, but it seems like in the past like 5 years we've had like 20 of them. So it's like, how is this one going to be different? And purely because of the premise is exactly why. I like the movie. I looked up the writer and director. Definitely have not seen anything else he has done. But if this is the first one that I'm going to jump into, I think it's a great one to jump into. And Ellen Page, she's been in movies periodically, but she's not really as active as most actresses. But I've always enjoyed her work, and I think this is really ironic considering that she mocapped a character in The Last of Us, which is almost like a zombie drama. So that's the popular video game. So that's kind of funny that she's in this. Or it wasn't The Last of Us. She was in something, but she looked like the character in whatever. Ellen Page. She looked like she fits in that genre. But I really like this trailer quite a bit, and I'm actually looking forward to it. and I'm looking forward to this next one because Joel's right. This one came out a long time ago, but, so under the radar that no one even knew about it except for Joel in the dark web. So this next one is called Golden Exit. And just to put it lightly, because there's a lot of moving parts into this, Emily Browning plays an assistant to, I believe it's, Adam Horvitz's character, and he's a designer, and she kind of comes in, and there's two kind of families going on, and she, kind of witnesses everything from both sides, and it almost seems like in the trailer she's kind of like the time bomb that makes everyone go a little crazy, and so they're just like, get her out of here, and it just looks like a really good drama about families and the problems that arise between people and conflicts, and she looks like she's got a lot of problems, but the writer and director Alex Ross Perry did Queen of Earth, which came out 3 years ago, and I actually have seen that one. That was with Elizabeth Moss, who is really popular in Mad Men and now with The Handmaid's Tale. She was really good in that movie, and actually, like, people I think overhyped that movie just a hair, but for me, I was like, that was a good, solid drama about someone trying to get her life back together in this cabin in the middle of the woods. I really enjoyed it for what it was, so you know what? Just from that in this trailer, I'm willing to check this out. And, Emily Browning, yes, she's been in movies, but unfortunately, the first thing I saw her in, two things. First one was Sucker Punch, no thank you. And the second one was The Uninvited, which was the horror remake. I actually really enjoyed that one. Everyone else in this, Jason Schwartzman, Chloe Sevigny, Sevigny, sorry. This is why I got a C+ in English in high school. And then, of course, Mary Louise Parker, best known for Weeds. So, yeah, a very interesting cast. Looks like a good family drama. I have nothing more to say. Joel, your hot take?
Well, I'm hoping that you also saw Emily Browning in Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events way back in 2004. The one movie? With Jim Carrey.
The movie?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. She's the
main girl. She's Violet Baudelaire.
What's really funny is I had never read the books, never saw the movie. I actually watched the TV series on Netflix.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, definitely watch the Jim Carrey one. It's a lot of fun. In any case, so that's where I saw Emily Browning first, and then, years later, I didn't see The Uninvited. I don't think I'd ever seen her in anything until Sucker Punch. Pretty sure. Which I'm a fan of Sucker Punch, but anyway, I'm one of the three people who like that movie. In any case, I'm super stoked for this. I was a big fan of Queen of Earth, which people underhyped. Thank you very much. And I also liked Listen Up Philip from Alex Ross Perry. He did that one as well with Jason Schwartzman. And that was a really caustic, very mean movie, but it's good. Also has Elizabeth Moss, in fact. One of that year's best supporting performances from her. And I'm super excited for this. It's got a great cast, great premise, very much in line with what he's been studying, at least across those three movies. There's movies that he's made that I haven't seen, The Color Wheel, and there's one before that I forgot the name of. But I'm super excited for this. Perry's a really vital voice right now. He also, interestingly enough, there's a Christopher Robin movie coming out next, I think this year actually, that he co-wrote. It's okay. From Disney. It's from Disney and everything. It's not in the same vein as The Goodbye Christopher Robin. It's very much about Winnie the Pooh. It's got all the characters. It's about Christopher Robin interacting with them. And he wrote the first draft of the screenplay, so it's very interesting that he did that. But I'm very excited for this. This trailer is definitely with the capital M and T, my thing. I like this director a lot, so I'm excited. It comes out just next week, I think, on VOD. So I will be reviewing this on my website for sure.
So Joel, how do you do a transitional segment between trailers by talking about what could be a nice little quiet drama to what the hell is this, and how did someone approve of this idea? What are we talking about?
Right. Okay. So that's the fun thing, because even Chase does not, but I generally try to alphabetize the trailers, just because it's fun to try to figure some of this stuff out, like for various reasons. I have OCD, so of course alphabetizing is fun because of that, because I have a compulsive need to alphabetize that stuff, but also secondarily because it's fun to then, because what I do is I alphabetize them and then I assign them to the person. So if Chase, if you're wondering if that's how you end up with some crazy stuff sometimes, that's why. And so in this case, it just so happened that I got one, and it happened to be the next letter from Golden X. It starts with a G, and the next one's H.
To be honest, before Joel introduces it, I thought he was going to give this to me because it's like right up my alley.
It is something that I usually would give to you. It just so happened that it fell to me this time. So this one is the Hurricane Heist. All right, guys, I'm just going to give it up. I'm going to say it, and Chase now probably knows what I'm about to say because I told him that he would not believe it.
Which is amazing because I know what he's going to say, and the director of this movie is a director of a franchise that he hates, so this is very funny to me that he's about to say this.
I actually haven't liked any of the movies that this director has made that I've seen. So it's really funny that this movie is – I'm so excited for it. This is my favorite trailer of the week. And it's because I have great hopes that this is this year's White House Down.
Oh, my God.
Let me explain that before somebody targets us with nuclear explosives. Or targets me, I guess. Chase did nothing. So this movie looks like the most gloriously, amazingly awesome thing in all of existence. I'm slightly over-exaggerating here, but it looks so fun. So Maggie Grace and help me out, Chase. Who was the
someone has blackmailed Toby Kebbell.
Toby Kebbell. That's who it was. I was trying to remember his name. For some reason, I couldn't remember Koba's name. So yeah, Maggie Grace and Toby Kebbell star in this movie where Toby Kebbell, a lot of money goes missing in the midst of a hurricane, and they've got to try to steal it back again in the middle of a hurricane. Literally, it is a hurricane heist. Do you get it? Everything about this trailer left a big, gigantic, dumb grin on my face, which I think actually kind of separates it from White House Down, because everything about White House Down until I saw it looked utterly and completely awful. I was so not looking forward to White House Down. I thought that it was going to be one of the worst movies of the year. I honestly thought that it could have been the worst movie of the year from the trailers, which is why, even though we talk about trailers on this show every week, I don't put really any sort of I don't let trailers deter me anymore. I put only so much stock into them. I know that we talk every week about trailers and all that, and that's fun, but trailers can be deceptive. And the White House Down trailers were very deceptive. They made it look like something that it wasn't. White House Down is a comedy, and it looks to me like this is going to be one as well. It looks like this is everything but the kitchen sink. It looks like it's going to have its tongue planted firmly in its cheek, and nothing here is going to be something to take seriously. And like White House Down, the people who attempt to take any of it seriously because of its director are missing the point entirely. That's what happened with White House Down for me. I know that I'm going on and on about this, but they do seem to exist in very much the same thing, where there's already a high concept premise, and then they put a higher concept thing on top of that premise. So, for instance, in White House Down, it's a governmental takeover. But the thing that's on top of it is that it all takes place in the White House and on the White House lawn. So at some point, there's an entire war happening on the White House lawn. That's what they say in the movie. And it's true. And none of that movie is supposed to be taken any form of seriously. And I feel like the movie was totally underrated because people tried to, and that was because Roland Emmerich directed it. People felt like from his previous movies They were too sincere. They were too earnest. And this movie was going to be the same thing because people are falling into the trap of judging a movie because of the director's involvement. Anyway, that's a whole other story in itself. And I think that Rob Cohen is very much a similar director in that he takes things very earnestly and sincerely with very silly plots. That's part of the reason why I don't like the Fast and Furious franchise, not even his movies, because I guess he only directed one of them. But in any case, not even the first movie, because I felt like it was a very silly premise that was taken too earnestly and sincerely, and it should have been trash. It should have been glorious, what Pauline Kael talked about. It shouldn't have been an earnest story about family, quote unquote. It should have been silly. It was silly. And that's why it just didn't connect with me as it connected with so many other people. But this movie, and that's also, by the way, the problem that I had with Triple X, which to a lesser degree, but I don't really like that movie either. And I think it suffers from some of the same problems. His movies tend to start with very silly ideas and then too sincerely try to wrap them up. And Stealth was the same way. Awful movie. Started out well, and then by the 20-minute mark, it just totally fell apart. So hopefully this doesn't do that. I'm really hopeful that this is another, big action comedy that people misunderstand. That's my hope. Again, favorite trailer of the week. I just had a gigantic, big, dumb grin on my face. Again, like it is a WTF movie. Like I can't believe this exists, but I can't wait to see it. So, Chase, what are you thinking over there?
Okay. From the director of Dragonheart, The Fast and Furious, Triple X.
I forgot that he did
Stealth.
Dragonheart. That's a movie I like. So
yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just like, I'm about to say something pretty asinine, but just get ready for it. From the director of Stealth, the third Mummy movie, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, Alex Cross.
Another one I like. I forgot that he did that.
Alex Cross and The Boy Next Door. I'm going to go on record and say the Hurricane Heist looks like the best thing he's ever put his name on, because Joel's right. If you look at most of his films, like 98% of his films, they are asinine plots with crazy over-the-top action and characters and dialogue. This looks like he's just going to put 110% of that craziness into this, and it looks like a blast. It is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen, and we're talking about a Nicolas Cage movie here in a second, and this is the craziest trailer of the week. So, I mean, like, what is happening?
And that is saying something, by the way. Let's just say, like,
it's a compliment. It's a
compliment. I mean, it's a Nicolas Cage movie that looks particularly crazy. So this is saying something.
Yeah, I mean this in the best way possible. I am not even trolling. Rob Cohen, if you're listening, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen you direct, and I cannot wait to see it because it just looks like big dumb fun. I can't believe Toby Kebbell's in this. Maggie Grace, like who asked these people to be in there? But whatever. It sounds like they read it and they're like, you know what? I'm okay with this. I'm okay with being in something as crazy as this. It was fun. It's one of those things to where, like, yeah, the heist was already fun enough, but you add the hurricane on top of it. Joel's right. You take a crazy idea and you up it to the nth degree with something even crazier, and it's like, cool, I'm down for it.
If this can be as good as something like White House Down or even Snakes on a Plane, then I will be very happy. I'm a huge, or like Shoot 'em Up or something.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of those high concept, brazenly stupid plots that they totally commit to all of the actors. Snakes on a Plane is like almost 2006 is a great year, and Snakes on a Plane is in my top 20 of that year.
Oh,
that's how much
great.
That's how much I love that. White House Down probably in my top 20 of 2013, and yeah, same thing with Shoot 'em Up. I love when directors do this. There's not a mean bone in any of these movies' bodies. Maybe Shoot 'em Up, but whatever. In this movie's case, it looks like just a total roller coaster ride. Munch the popcorn, leave your brain at the door. Totally engage though with the stupidity and have a blast. Hopefully, it's that way. Now, I mean, if it's just stupid in ways that are annoying, I'll review it that way. But nevertheless, right now, as of now, for a trailer to sell a movie like this, it knocks it out of the park. Looks so good.
It just looks like pure entertainment, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And
Right,
also,
exactly.
if Joel and I get an invite to this, we're signing up for that, and my finger is going to burn from hitting the reply button as fast as I can on my phone, so cannot wait for I honestly can't wait for that. When I received that invite saying, would you like to join a secret screening of the Hurricane Heist? I'm like, yeah, I would. So the Hurricane Heist, thank you, Rob Cohen, for leading up this moment to your career. And it's also very funny to see in a trailer from the director of Triple X. All right, because it's just funny. All right, the next trailer, also I like, but kind of have an issue with it. It's just more of bad timing. This one's called I Kill Giants, and it's basically a Monster Calls Part 2. So this little girl has to find some inner turmoil, and basically has a giant that she has to kill. Like, it's literally a Monster Calls. I don't care what anyone says. It looks good. I mean, that's not the problem. I mean, it looks like a competent movie. It's just a little girl struggling through life, bullying, growing up, and she escapes into a fantasy life filled with monsters and magic. That's literally what happens in A Monster Calls. And I think this movie will get a bad rap because of that, because it's literally coming out right after A Monster Calls, and A Monster Calls was pushed to be an Oscar movie, didn't really make it there. Will this one do it? I have no clue. It looks like a good movie. Zoe Saldana is in it, Imogen Poots. Yeah, I really have nothing more to say. It's well shot. It looks like it's well acted. But the problem is A Monster Calls. And A Monster Calls didn't do really that well. And I think that's because it looked like, it was this Harry Potter type of movie. It was marketed that way. But when you watch that movie, it's geared towards more adults. And it's really emotional. And it just drains you. And that's not the type of movie that most people will want to go see. It looks like this movie is going to be doing that again. So I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted, Joel, because I like the trailer. It's a well put together, I guess, trailer, but I think that's going to really hurt it. So I mean, what's your take on it? Do you think A Monster Calls will affect this movie at all?
I doubt it, because A Monster Calls was a failure financially.
Yes, it was.
And I don't even know if it did that well on video, to be completely honest. But I never saw it. In fact, it's one that I missed. I know that you saw. When you see
A Monster Calls, it's literally beat for beat what this trailer is.
Well, thank you, Rob Lowe from Parks and Recreation. Literally. I don't know. I mean, it looks good, certainly. I think that you're working with the assumption that the world is fake, and I think that the trailer is certainly pushing the idea that it isn't. But we'll see. It's also got the girl from The Conjuring 2. Totally different hair, but that's her. And that'll be interesting to see her in a completely different role. She was terrific in that. And yeah, I'm excited. I like the concept. It's not my favorite trailer of the week or anything, but certainly it looks emotional. So that's
okay,
pretty
so
much
you have to promise me
all I can
something.
say.
If you are going to see this, you have to watch Monster Calls.
Yeah. If I see this, I don't even. When does it come out?
It came out last year.
No. When does this one come out?
That's what I'm saying. It came out last year.
Oh, I see.
And so they're getting more of a wider release. And I
think that the last year thing was maybe a film festival, because I'm pretty sure that it's like a February or March release or something.
Yeah, last year was a film festival for sure, but it doesn't really have like a set date yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's if I see this at some point, I'll try to catch up to A Monster Calls. I was looking forward to that one a lot, but I just kind of disappeared into the end of the year, and I didn't I never made it out. So
So Joel, I have a question for you.
I went and saw Underworld Blood Wars instead.
God bless your soul. So I have a question. Why did Disney want to hire Nicolas Cage for their Alice in Wonderland reboot sequel?
You know, whenever I made the notes, I knew that you would make a joke about this. I went into your mind and read it before you ever knew about this trailer, and I knew that you would do this. No, but oh boy! All right, so our next trailer is Looking Glass. Now this is basically the movie Vacancy if Luke Wilson and Kate Beckinsale played the owners of the hotel.
Yep. That's exactly what it is.
That's exactly what it is. Because in Vacancy, which is a great movie, by the way.
It really is good.
The first one, I never saw the second, which I think was like direct to video, but the first one's terrific. And it was about Luke Wilson and Kate Beckinsale went into this hotel, which ended up being a murder hotel. There were a lot of snuff films about, and they realized that they were taking place in their hotel room. So now we have Nicolas Cage and oh gosh, who's the actress?
Robin Tunney?
Oh yes, Robin Tunney. Not a very common name anymore. So you'll have to forgive me, audience. I totally forgot her name. Basically they end up like accidentally owning a hotel that ends up being a murder hotel. Which they find out by discovering a series of compartments behind like mirrors and such. And this looks like a blast. I'm just going to say it. It looks totally insane. Kind of derivative, obviously, since it looks exactly like Vacancy, but reversed. But still, I love this concept. It's so lurid and dark and exactly the kind of thing that I like with this type of stuff. So I think that we are fans of all 5 of these trailers
for all different reasons. It's incredible.
For different reasons. Yeah, completely. I mean, I'm generally, pretty much equally excited for all of them, except for the Hurricane Heist is the one that I'm most anticipating. But these all look really good, and this looks totally insane. It looks like Nicolas Cage is having fun, and yeah, I can't wait to see this one.
Yeah, so
I think it comes out February 23rd, right, or something?
February 16th.
February 16th. Wow, so it's
same
really
weekend as
close.
Black Panther.
Yeah, so this is probably going to be a VOD thing. I don't think it's a theater thing. I think it's going to be one of those movies that opens like at the odd theater around the country and opens on iTunes the same day.
Yeah,
pretty sure because Mom and Dad just did the same thing this weekend. So I believe that this is what that is. So I will certainly be watching this. I can't wait.
So I have 2 things, and I'm not trolling when I say either one of these things. So I mean, you can take me seriously or you can just look the other way. But the first thing, this is the type of film, not even joking, that Alfred Hitchcock would make.
Yes.
Considering his, success with like Psycho around like motels or wherever, this is the type of idea that he would probably do. And Vacancy's the same way.
Yeah, certainly stuff that like Vacancy and this are directly influenced by Psycho.
Exactly.
The idea of voyeurism and all that. Yeah, and stuff like Peeping Tom from Michael Powell and all that. Yeah,
exactly. So, like, I'm not saying this is going to win the Oscars, but like the writers definitely have an influence on those type of movies. And second thing, Nicolas Cage, he is one of the best actors to ever walk this earth, and I mean that in the most sincere way possible. Because if you think about what this guy has accomplished, not only does he have an Oscar, he has been nominated for another Oscar. The guy has made some of the most loony bin movies in the history of film. He has had successful hits. He has had low points in his career. Like he was successful at one point. He dipped out and he has come back for monetary reasons, of course. But he's done blockbusters. He's done smaller films. The guy has literally done everything in the book with this industry. That's actually quite incredible. And he is one of the best. I mean, the guy has awards to prove it. He has cult followings to prove it. Like, he is one of those entities in Hollywood that even when he makes some of the worst movies imaginable, people still want to work with him. And there's just something kind of magical about that. And believe it or not, even with the batshit insanity of like Mom and Dad, which, you know, I've told my girlfriend many times we're going to watch that at some point. Even when he does stuff like this where he's not going ballistic or anything, it's just more of like a straight up thriller, I'm still intrigued because the guy, he brings something to every single film. I don't know what it is. It's the Nicolas Cage disease that just anytime when he's attached to anything, I'm always intrigued. But I'm like Joel, I really loved Vacancy for what it was. I was working at the movie theater at the time when that came out. I saw a late night show, and I was kind of impressed that Luke Wilson could really kind of drive a thriller, and this looks kind of the same way. I'm wondering what the plot twist is going to be, or like what's going to happen. It's just one of those movies that has captured my intrigue, and even if I don't see this in theaters, I'm willing to spend my iTunes money on it. So Nicolas Cage, thank you, sir, for just continuing to pump out stuff, because I'm always intrigued. Even when Joel and I have to sit through the garbage like Arsenal, it's still just entertaining on some level. So it's just, you know, Nicolas Cage, God bless you, sir. So obviously Joel's favorite is the Hurricane Heist. For me, I don't know. I mean, I like all 5 of them, but if I had to pick, you know,
the Hurricane Heist.
I know Joel wants me to side with him this week, but you know what? I kind of want to go with The Cured because it's a different take on the whole zombie drama, and you know what? I'm down for it. But to be honest with you, I like all 5 of them. Sue me. So where's you guys' favorite trailers that have dropped throughout the week that we have talked about? Please let us know. Okay, so here we are, folks. The Maze Runner has come to the conclusion that we all have been waiting for. Joel and I speak about it every single day as if it's gospel. we love this friend. No, not really. We find it competent. So the Death Cure has come out, and of course that was the movie that we picked to review for you guys. And I honestly wanted to give you a review that has history of the previous films. So I actually ventured out and saw the first one, courtesy to my wonderful co-host over there. He let me have access to a couple digital codes that he had laying around in his house. Even if he denies that, I will not tell you where he got them. But for this one, he had the digital codes laying around, and I saw the first one and I actually liked it. It was one of those solid YA adaptations that I really enjoyed. I like Dylan O'Brien as a main lead actor. I think he's got that charisma, and his career is starting out to look pretty good, even though, like American Assassin was kind of just blah to me. He was good in it. He's got promise. The premise of The Maze Runner is really cool. I like Wes Ball's direction in that movie. Has this really great dystopian vision for this world. I felt like it was a palpable world. It never felt fake to me. It felt like a real place with really great vision. The sequel is really funny because I saw the first 10 minutes and shut it off because it was boring, and then I got lazy and just read the Wikipedia article to catch up before I saw the third one. So then the third one comes around.
I don't really blame you, by the way.
Yeah, it was really, which is ironic because it's actually written and directed by the same dudes that did all 3 of them. So I don't know what happened, but I don't need to watch it. So I can't really properly review it. I can just tell you that the first 10 minutes were boring to me. But going into the third one, I was hoping that Wes Ball would kind of hit that stride of the first one where it's like, that was a solid movie. Never going to watch it again. Never going to recommend it, but it was solid. I had a good time watching it, and I kind of did. So, Joel, please let everyone know your kind of history with the Maze Runner franchise and your anticipation for the third one and the synopsis, and give us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so I wasn't looking forward to the first one. I think that I had just kind of recently been burned by Divergent, and I was, sort of Hollywood was getting tired of the whole YA franchise adaptation thing that they had going there for a while because of Twilight and Hunger Games and all that. So wasn't super like excited for it, but it kind of surprised me. I thought that, and actually the reason that it works is tied into the reason I think its sequels have been a bit underwhelming. Uh, there's a really like solid sense of mystery that it raises. We don't know what's going on, and the movie is smart enough not to completely let us in on every secret because it's the first movie in the series. So,
it's like a slow unraveling of the mystery, and that's what makes it intriguing. Because if it was something that was like, oh, we're going to reveal everything within the first 10 minutes, it'd be like, well, what was the point then?
That's dumb. Yeah, exactly. And, there might have been a lot of action scenes involving weird creatures, and there might have been fast pacing, but the trajectory of the plot was a slow burn. It was very much just laying those first clues to let us know that, we're watching something of consequence. So, I was looking forward to the second one, and I saw it the following year, 2015, and it was underwhelming. It kind of started answering questions in ways that, to me, didn't really make much sense, and I'll get into why it didn't make much or any sense in part of my negatives in this for this movie. So, 3 years has gone by between the Scorch trials and the Death Cure, and part of that is because Dylan O'Brien, there's a scene that opens the new movie, and during the process of shooting that scene, he had a horrible injury, and in fact, it was such a horrible injury that he was near death. He fell off a train as it was going as fast as you see it in the movie, and hurt himself fairly badly. So, in any case, it was a rather devastating injury, which meant that he had to go, obviously, to the hospital. He had to have time to recover. Then he had rehab. So now, 3 years later, the movie's finally coming out, and it doesn't really, and unfortunately, doesn't really feel relevant anymore. I know that that's out of their, control. They had to kind of complete it because they had a contract and all that, but because of extenuating circumstances, doesn't really feel relevant anymore. And in fact, I had forgotten most of what had happened in the Scorch trials by the time I was sitting down, because I had scanned like one review of the new one before I saw it. I generally don't do that, but it let me know of a plot point involving a character played by Kaya Scodelario that I had completely forgotten ever happened. And so it was sort of like a shock to learn that through like just references to her character that are made in the review of this movie. And that's just, that's kind of comes with the territory of there having been 3 years between the releases. I mean, it was kind of shocking. So I didn't really have any sense of excitement about it because it had been so long, and I really only had fond memories of the first one. I didn't really have any memories of the second one, and I didn't make the time to rewatch it. So, leading up to the third one, I was mostly just kind of whatever. And overall, it's surprisingly okay. I think it's better than the second one, but I don't think it quite lives up to the first one. And that partly has to do with its placement in the series as the final movie. With the final movie in a series, you have expectations of certain things being wrapped up or answered, and the way this movie answers those questions becomes more and more muddled. However, there's a lot of real showmanship in the filmmaking. So I'll let you go ahead and get into your particular, I guess you sound positive on this, so I guess you're going to start with your negatives?
Correct. Did you want to tell everyone what the movie was about?
No, I'm just kidding. Yes. So this one pretty much like kicks off. It seems to be fairly soon after the events of the second one.
Yes.
And here we find it's interesting because the best scene in the movie, I think, is the opening action sequence, and where we have a lot of information imparted to us. Basically, Thomas, who is played by Dylan O'Brien, is trying to save his friend Minho, played by Ki Hong Lee, who has been kidnapped by. He's one of the people that and I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this name, and I'm gonna try to like figure out if this means anything. The World Kill Zone. What is it? The World Catastrophe Kill Zone Department.
Close
yeah,
enough.
that doesn't make any sense as a title of anything. all it makes
But
sense
Joel,
as
it's
is
an acronym for Wicked.
it's not an acronym for Wicked. It's an acronym so that they can call it Wicked.
Whatever,
it doesn't...
Joel, it's Wicked.
It's wicked dumb. All right, so yeah, there we go. So yeah, Wicked has kidnapped Minho along with a bunch of other people well, actually, you know what? I'm going to conceal why they're doing this, because why they're doing this is part of my negative comment. And that's where my rant comes in later on, guys. I'll have a rant on this one. So anyway, Wicked has, kidnapped them for some reason. And Thomas has to save him, and the train heist goes awry. It doesn't work. They end up saving people from the wrong compartment, it seems. So in any case, they are going to try to infiltrate the last known city on Earth after a virus known as the Flare virus has wiped out everybody. And they have to infiltrate that city, so they get the help of a disfigured resistance leader played by Walton Goggins. And that's basically the plot of the movie. It all comes together at the end. We learn pretty much every secret, and not all of it holds up, let's just say. So that's what it's about, and I'll let Chase go into his positives.
Oh, we're doing positives first, not negatives?
Well, you're going to do positives. Negatives. You're going to do negatives first. I'm going to do positives first, because we are split here, I think. I'm slightly negative, you're slightly positive. So.
Well, and my whole rationale behind this movie, Joel kind of pointed to it earlier. I think the technical showmanship of this movie kind of overshadows some of the, very noticeable negatives, but it's one of those things to where, like, I don't like to just want to give an award for a participation medal, like, oh, you tried, like, pat on the back, but, like, Wes Ball actually did some pretty good stuff in this movie to where, you know what, it was entertaining to say the least, but here are my negatives, and I think there are 3 crucial negatives. The first kind of lighter one is the same problem I had with the first one, where there's a lot of cliches in these types of movies, because it is stuff that we've seen before, whether it be, in the Hunger Games or the Divergent films. Is they all kind of have the same cliches and structures, and so they're kind of noticeable. And just like with the first one, there's a lot of conveniences with characters kind of coming in and out of the story to really, kind of help the others, and there's not really any stakes or any type of, I guess, like, any threat towards these people, because there's, like I said, there's way more conveniences than I would have liked, but, it is what it is. It is, once again, young adult novel, so I can excuse it just a little bit. My second issue with the film is it's way too long. 2.5 hours is honestly, pun intended, a death cure for this movie, because it will cure you of boredom and go right into death. So it's just one of those
I was
things.
about to say, that doesn't make any sense unless you make sense of it, but you made sense of it.
Well, see, Joel, you have to wait for punchlines sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
No, it's one of those things to where when you're watching it, you realize that 20th Century Fox wants to make an epic, quote-unquote, finale, so you want to make it feel epic, but the problem is the story between all 3 of these movies, as a matter of fact, even though I didn't see the second one, but if the first one is like the third one, I can assume the second one, story-wise, is kind of like all 3 of them, to where this story is so thin that they stretched it out way too long into a 3-part series. You could have easily condensed this into 2 movies. It's the same problem I had with the Hobbit films. You could have easily condensed them down to 2.
You're absolutely right, by the way. That's the reason the second one is the worst of these movies, is because there's a lot of wheel spinning and a lot of repetition.
Exactly. And it's the same thing with this one, and that leads me to my biggest issue with this movie. as a finale, you expect closure. You expect this finale that will leave the theater going, wow, that was a really good little trilogy. But the problem with this movie is the third act of the film, just like with the opening sequence, I believe is pretty epic. I liked the technical showmanship. I really got into it. There was some interesting cinematography and sound design and action sequences that was like, wow, they're actually putting a lot of effort into this, quote unquote, apocalyptic thing that's happening at the end of the movie. I really got into it. But once that was over with, and even had like an emotional weight in the middle of that, kind of apocalyptic third act, which I didn't really expect. When all that is said and done, the actual end of the movie is so underwhelming that I was like, this is the last thing that you're going to throw out with this story. And of course, it's 20th Century Fox, and yes, they're going to probably be a part of Disney soon, but they were just like, all right, we're going to tease this little Twinkie in front of this fat kid. Please, let's tease a little bit. And it's like, you're alluding to this sequel that, first of all, this is a dying franchise. We don't need a sequel. It kind of undercut the entire third act to where, like, that was a decent little epic third act. I wasn't expecting it. And then you lead off with like this fizzle that resembled a whoopee cushion releasing air, where it's just like fiddling there and then just kind of whimpers out. And I was like, okay, we sat 2.5 hours for this underwhelming ending to where it didn't even complement that whole third act. So it just, those are my main three kind of grievances with the film. Cliched characters are kind of convenient for the plot. Too long, definitely could have cut it down, and the actual ending of the film is so underwhelming that it makes the whole epic third act look like it was pointless. So those are kind of my main issues with it, and like I said, this film is riddled with cliches, and it's got some obvious stuff in it, but I think since Wes Ball, the director, actually tried with all three of these movies, even if the second one's underwhelming as a whole, I appreciate him actually trying and not just feel like, it doesn't ever feel like he gives up like doing what he wants to do. It seems like he put in some artistic merit into this, and I gotta give him props for it. But so it actually sounds like with all three of my issues, it's more story related and more screenplay related. So I'm gonna put all the blame on T.S. Nolan. So the screenplay person.
He certainly has more of the blame here, and I'm actually going to go into my positives. Kind of piggybacking off your thoughts about Wes Ball here. I think that he does the better job of the two.
Absolutely.
In trying, very hard to bring this to some sort of conclusion, but he's constantly, brought up short by the screenplay. But it's a very impressive directorial effort. And all three of them are. I mean, he even directs the Scorch Trial as well. It's the problems with the screenplay and the problems with the story that are kind of inherent to the material. I don't even know if I'd blame T.S. Nolan for this. I think I'd blame James Dashner, who wrote the series.
Wait a minute. Joel's going all the way back to the novel to put blame on.
But I'll get into that later. Trust me when I say that's why I kind of structured it this way, because my rant will be last. So to go into my positives, I gotta say I thought that it was well directed, particularly the action scenes. There's a lot of classical, there's not a lot of shaky cam nonsense here. It's very classical. Especially that chase at the beginning is superb.
Yeah.
Not just because it's a very showy scene, but because it imparts information so well. It catches us up to where these characters are right now in a way that's much more than just where they are physically. We come to understand why they're doing this through actions and not through dialogue, which is very grown up for a franchise like this. You expect expository dialogue every 10 seconds, but you don't get that here. Characters don't say more than a few words for like a whole 20 minutes, which is pretty unexpected, and I liked that. I thought that was a very good conscious effort on Ball's part, and I think that was directorial. By the way, I don't think it's particularly screenplay. There was probably more to the screenplay, dialogue wise, in those first few pages than there was on screen, and I suspect that Wes Ball, kind of axed some of it, saying, we need to have a very simple idea here with a lot of showmanship, and he did it really well. There's a lot of very impressive special effects. He effectively blurs them here, which is great. Some terrific visual effects work on this movie. Even some of the fire effects were great, which are hard to get right, it seems. Anyway, in any case, I thought that it moved nicely, even though it's too long. There are long stretches when it zips by. Like there's a lot of stretches here until the end. I think the big action scene at the end goes on, and then it goes on, and then it goes on some more, and I think it goes a little long, like you said, but certainly on a logistical level, it's impressive. And so I this counts for a lot in this movie's case. And I very much appreciated the fact that somebody was taking this material seriously rather than just, this is my third movie, I'm just going to treat it as an obligation. It's definitely a fact that Wes Ball did not look at this as an obligation. He was very much trying to take it seriously, and I like that. I thought that the performances were solid. Nothing really worth talking about specifically from anybody. They were all basically on the same level as each other, but Dylan O'Brien, good. Will Poulter, who comes back as Gally in some way that I won't reveal, good. Ki Hong Lee continues to be the best, I think, as Minho. He's solidly the best of all three movies. Kaya Scodelario, good. Particularly, there's some conflicted elements of the character of Teresa that we learn. Rosa Salazar as Brenda, and Giancarlo Esposito as Jorge. Both really good performances, even though I feel like the only reason that Giancarlo Esposito was cast was so that he could say hermano like every 2 seconds, because of course he was the boss of Los Pollos Hermanos. So of course you have to say, it's like probably in his contract, you are going to say hermano every 10 seconds. That's what I felt. Anyway, nevertheless, he was good. And Rosa Salazar was good. She's an unsung treasure right now. Can't wait to see her as Alita. And so yeah, good performances all around. Good sense of showmanship, and good cinematography, as you said. Like dusty when it's out in the sand, and I even like how they light the scenes at the end that take place at night.
Oh my god, dude! The whole time I was thinking like this. There was a couple shots that reminded me of Blade Runner. I was like, this is good.
Yeah, some of this movie, particularly in the climax, is like a study in how to do well choreographed and well lit action scenes that take place in the late evening.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of movies that get that wrong. They don't know how to light it, and this movie does that correctly. You could tell where everything was. There was a sense of geography. Like you said, it really takes advantage of the the dystopic city that this movie takes place in, and it's stunning sometimes. So I think that all works, and yet I think that only takes you so far before the screenplay starts to kick in. So I'm going to go ahead and let you talk about your positives, which I'm assuming are basically the same thing.
Yeah, I have 4 highlights I would like to give this film. Directing, cinematography, action, and makeup, actually. So I'll start with the directing. Wes Ball, like I said, I was impressed in the first one, where he managed to take this small little idea of Dylan O'Brien coming out through a giant gopher hole and basically going, "What's up, bitches? I'm here," and having this little community in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by tall wall-like structures like you would see in Attack on Titan or whatever. And so we have no idea what's going on. Yet, when they talk about it, you felt like there was a world out there. And Wes Ball in this one, in the first one, because I didn't see the second one, but I could assume it's the same thing where it feels like a real world. It feels like this apocalyptic world that takes place in this area where it's a little, a lot poorer than this area. It feels like this real, well-realized world where, like you said, Wes Ball didn't feel like he took advantage of the script or took advantage of his paycheck and was like, whatever, I'm just going to do, basic shots or whatever and move on with my day. It looked like he actually took care of this subject matter, make sure this dystopian world and city looks like it does and, adds a little bit of flair to it with the production design and the costumes and make sure it has like this artistic pop that we don't expect it to be. Because when you see these types of movies in theaters, you go, okay, the director's going to be lazy and it's not going to put any care into it. It's just going to be all green screen. No, this was an expensive movie and Wes Ball actually used its $65 million budget, by the way, to great use and make it look like a real city that was in ruins and have this, giant tall corporation loom over it. Like I felt like I was there. It had, like I said, great production design, great costumes. It was amazing. And bleeding into the cinematography, there are some shots that just made my jaw drop. Whether it be the action sequence in the beginning that was exhilarating and just really throws you into the movie. It was swift. It was elegant. It was rough. I love the way the movie started. I love that whole third act. It was devastating. The cinematography was claustrophobic, but it wasn't, shaky cam where it made you nauseated. It was the perfect amount of claustrophobic, having that adrenaline pump up, paranoia, excitement. It was just a really great blend of all of that. And once again, just captures that sense of realism in the city. And Joel's correct. There were a couple shots, in particular, like aerial sequences or shots where I was like, wow, like, what is this, Blade Runner all over again? Like, this is crazy. So I'm glad that, Wes Ball had that communication with his DP and was like, hey, I'm looking for something kind of like this. And I'm glad that the DP was able to execute that. The third thing, like I said, with the first and the first act and the third act, or the beginning of the first act and the third act, is the action sequences were really well done. This is a very stretched out, very thin story. Doesn't really have much going on with it. As a matter of fact, I mean, the main plot of this movie you figure would be a subplot, but the subplot you would think it would be the subplot is actually the main plot, and then the main plot that you would think is the story is actually the subplot. And so it's a really kind of, like I said, thin story, but everything around the kind of, weak screenplay is so well done and exhilarating that I was kind of getting into it, even though the screenplay had some issues. And the fourth final thing that no one has been addressing, except for maybe a couple of critics, the makeup on this movie is incredible. I'm not even joking when I say this. There were 2 movies last year, or 3 movies, that kind of made my jaw drop. Well, I guess 4 movies. I keep thinking of them once as I keep talking about it, but there was 4 movies last year that kind of astounded me on a makeup level. Logan, It, Darkest Hour, and The Shape of Water. The makeup effects on Walton Goggins' face was actually so impressive. I was like, they put money into that. Like, they actually cared about making his face look effed up to a point where I thought it was real. Like, it actually looked like...
Hey, Chase?
Yeah?
Keep talking. I'm just going to step away for a second.
Okay. So the makeup on Walton Goggins' face was so impressive. I thought his face was actually cut. I thought there was scars on his face. I just thought that the blend of the green screen work and the actual makeup effects were so well done that they paid attention to it. And so those are kind of like my major positives. And I guess I didn't mention the performances. When I walked out of this movie, I said to myself, Dylan O'Brien is a great lead actor, and he has the presence of a main actor, but the guy is still young, and he has a lot to learn, and he will get to that point one day. But what I've seen from these movies and from American Assassin, the guy has a knack for action. It is very unfortunate that he almost died from one of these injuries on this movie. And I'm glad that he's committed to his craft, and I'm glad that he's better. But just knowing that he was willing to put his life at risk for that, and to see how he transitioned to American Assassin, the guy knows how to deliver an action. Now, if he wants to advance more into drama or comedy, you go for it. You do whatever's best for your career. But these movies are the type of start that I want to see from these young actors and actresses, to where when I see stuff like this, Dylan O'Brien has promise. Now, he's good in this movie, and he's got some good moments. But when I see movies like this in American Assassin, it gives me promise that Dylan O'Brien has a promising career, and I want to see him flourish. But this is not going to be these types of movies that will declare like, oh, Dylan O'Brien is bad. It's like, no, he's still a young actor. He's getting his feet wet. He's trying to find his footing. But it's a good start after the past few years that he's had in film. Everyone else in the film is great. I want to give a shout out to where are you at? Well, first of all, Will Poulter. He's actually been great in both of these movies. His career is kind of in limbo because yes, he's in movies, but he needs to be in more. So that is my shout out to his agent. Please get this man more work. And I wanted to say Thomas Brody Sangster as Newt.
he's good too. Yeah,
he's really good in this movie, and he was that emotional core I was talking about in the third act. It was unexpected. I mean, I kind of expected it, but at the same time, it caught me off guard on how good it was. I was like, yeah, I'm getting into it. So, and Joel's correct. Ki Hong Lee is really great as Minho. Also, another kind of heartbeat to the film. So, and Aidan Gillian as Jansen. He's just fun as one of the villains. I really enjoy him. And then Walton Goggins, even though his character was completely unnecessary and I didn't really care for him being in it, he was good. And the makeup effects on his face were just absolutely astounding. So I think that's all the positives I can throw at this movie. So Joel, I'm excited to hear the rants that you've been ramping up throughout the week, and I'm excited to hear another Joel Copling rant.
Yeah, so, okay. I'm going to just basically jump right into it because my whole problem with this movie is its nature as a third movie and the lack of follow-through that it has that's expected of a final movie in a series. So here's the thing. Guys, I'm going to be real with y'all. Maze Runner fans out there that are listening, if you're listening, I don't mean to disparage a series that has a solid, a mostly solid foundation. But the hero-villain dynamic of this series makes absolutely no sense. No sense whatsoever. So try to follow me here. The premise of this series begins in mystery. And that's why the first one works. I said that at the beginning of the segment. We are introduced to ideas without being, given them as spelled out concepts. We are led to guess what all of this is leading to. And I like that. I like that about the first movie. But as it has become clearer and clearer, it's also become clear that this doesn't make any sense at all. So the villains of the movie are the World Catastrophe Kill Zone Department. And their role in this world is that they are trying to, and I'm about to say this, and all of you are about to go, what? And Chase is going to go, what? They are trying to find a cure for humanity. Yes, the villains of the movie are trying to find a cure for a virus that has wiped out most of humanity. I'm going to just repeat that. Just one more time, okay? The villains of the movie are trying to find a cure for humanity. Now, how they do this is certainly problematic because what they're trying to do is they're kidnapping certain people and who are immune to this virus, and they're trying to figure out using those people how to procure an antidote to this virus. And of course, in the midst of all that, there's the issue of ethics, and I understand that. But the thing is that desperate times call for desperate measures, and in this universe, almost all of humanity is wiped out, and there are just a few dozen people who are, or at least a few dozen people that they can find, who are immune to the virus. So it ultimately, to me, felt like it was completely understandable the desperate measures that they would take in order to do this. They were being a bit careless with safety, more than a bit careless, really, but nevertheless, they are trying to find a cure. So the heroes of the movie are trying to stop them from finding a cure. And I don't understand that in the slightest. It is completely bizarre to me that we are following these characters in this story. It feels to me like we should be following the people who have been kidnapped. Or maybe, just maybe, this is a totally crazy idea to people who read the series, maybe follow Wicked. Maybe have them be the main characters, because it feels to me like there's a lot of complexity that the screenplays for this series have been avoiding completely. So all of the villains here have been drawn up as basically cartoons. Even if they haven't been played like that, they have been drawn up as cartoons. So you have the doctor in charge of it, played by Patricia Clarkson, who kind of deserves better than this series. But you have her, she's the big doctor. She's the one that's spearheading all of this whole campaign. And she might be quiet in terms of personality. She might be more reserved, but she's a cartoon villain. And then you have Aidan Gillen, who plays Jansen, who's literally basically a cartoon villain, except that he happens to be live action. Like, essentially, I'm not convinced that in the screenplay it doesn't say, "Whoa, Jansen's a cartoon in the midst of all this." I'm shocked that perhaps that's not the case, because how he plays him is totally broad strokes. There's no nuance to that character as he plays him. As written, though, there's a lot of nuance to that character, because he's helping out, until a certain point, he's helping out the Patricia Clarkson character. And then we have, what's been going on with Kaya Scodelario's character, and the movie, the series is really only confronting her allegiances as they are directly proportionate to her feelings for Thomas in the series. There's nothing nuanced really about the conflictedness of her emotions in this movie. And so you have this entire series that's premised on something that makes no sense whatsoever. It makes no sense to follow the people trying to stop a plan to save the world. That's what this series is about. And so, Chase was talking about the ending and how it's, such a whimper, and it is. But for me, it was for a different reason. And I guess I won't, reveal anything here, although it's not much of a spoiler if I were to reveal it. But in any case, you kind of end this series wondering where they're going to go from here. There's no indication of hope. There's a lot of emotional, there's a lot of emotional or attempted emotional follow through. There's a lot of close-ups, and everybody's kind of being nice to each other after they've whatever. I'm trying not to reveal anything here, but it's apocalyptic and it doesn't quite stay that way, but it still feels like it does to me. And the reason is because there doesn't seem to be any hope at the end of the series. And not in a way that's ambiguous. I would have liked that, but in a way that seems to be completely evading its own reality. And I just don't get that. I don't get like the whole deal with this series. I don't understand why we're following these characters in this plot. I think that we should be following different characters, ones who are not, again, trying to stop a plan to save the world. And yeah, so this movie, as a last movie in a trilogy, should be dedicated to making some sort of sense of that. But instead, the screenplay muddles that right up until the end. And so we have this sense of muddled conflict and a limited perspective, or a muddled perspective, really, given the characters that we follow, and a movie that cannot reconcile any of that, even if it's impressive on a technical level, that only takes you so far as the screenplay, in my mind at least. And the story doesn't hold up. It is kind of a jumble, actually. There's a lot of things that are over-explained, but nothing is explained that is crucial to helping us make sense of what's going on with the whole hero-villain dynamic here. Why are the heroes positioned as the heroes if in any other movie they would be the villains? And why are the villains positioned as villains if they're kind of trying to be heroes? So even if it's a confused and ethically muddled way to do it, their whole end game is to save the world. So why are we following the people trying to stop that? It just doesn't make any sense to me, and I don't know. It's very strange. So that's my main negative. That's pretty much my only negative, but it kills the movie. It's a surprisingly okay movie on its own terms, but as part of a series and the end of that series, it just doesn't quite work for me. And that's because this series doesn't make any sense. So there we go. Chase, what's your response to that?
So the way you were talking about it kind of tells me that this, what's the author's name again?
James Dashner.
I have a feeling that he probably wrote a book, or not even the book, the treatment for the book, and had it concentrate on Wicked and these individual mazes that they have with these kids, and they focused on Wicked. And I have a feeling that he probably gave his treatment to his publicist or manager or whoever, or even the publishing house, and said, oh, that sounds really cool. It sounds like Divergent or Hunger Games. Make it more YA and make it more focused on the kids. Because it almost seems like the way you were describing it, that's kind of probably how the meeting went, where it was like he probably had this decent idea of, like, this virus breaking out and having this, like, secluded city with this corporation trying to find a cure, and focus more on them as characters rather than the people trying to stop this cure that's going to cure this, virus or whatever. And second thing, I mean, the way you kind of point out, like, now I see, the giant flaw in that, where it's like, why are these kids stopping this corporation who wants to cure this virus? And it's funny because that's what's actually in the movie, but the movie is presented as, oh, this corporation is a part of the wealthy and they disregard everyone else at the bottom. And I think that was the screenplay's way of going, hey, look, they're evil because of wealth disparity. And, Joel's right. Like, that doesn't make any sense because this is a corporation trying to cure it. Like, so, yeah, now that you point out all those inconveniences in the screenplay, it's like, yeah, that's pretty bad. So that's kind of my response to that.
Interesting. So I guess I'll go ahead and start with my final grade, and I'm gonna say a C+. I think it almost kind of makes it because of the showmanship, but it's just the ideas of this franchise have not been wrapped up in a satisfactory or any way that makes sense, basically. So yeah, that's pretty much my grade as a C+.
Yeah, I'm pretty much there, except I'll just go a little above. I'll go with a B minus, and the reason I'm giving it a minus is because of all the negatives, but the sheer wimpiness of the actual conclusion of the movie is what really dipped it down. Because I'd give the first Maze Runner a B. It's nothing, like spectacular or anything.
I think for me is a B minus, a C, and then a C plus.
Okay, I mean, yeah. So it's like, it is what it is. And like I said, I'm never gonna watch these movies again. I wouldn't even recommend these movies to people, but, for the couple days that I took myself on this journey with, even though I didn't complete the second one, I still had a fun time with it, even with the disparaging of the screenplay and whatnot, because it really doesn't make any sense when you think about it. But for what was presented as an attempt at a YA adaptation and story, I'm fine with it. But, yeah, so it sounds like we were almost pretty close, but Joel's story issues.
Basically the gist of both of our reviews is it's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's okay. You could do a lot worse than this. It's
oh yeah, that's the thing that people have to realize is that there are worse YA adaptations out there.
Yeah, much any of the Divergent movies are worse than this.
That's so true.
Yeah, I mean, literally the highest grade I think I'd give a Divergent movie, and of course we're never going to see all of them now. But
nope.
of the three that exist, the highest grade that I gave was a C minus. So was the first one. Was the first one a C minus? That one, and then I think I got like a D for Insurgent and a D plus for whatever the other one was. Allegiant. There we go.
It's one of those things to where it's not the worst thing to come out, but
there are better ones. I like all of the Hunger Games movies better than these.
Oh yeah,
to be completely honest, yeah.
Even with Mockingjay Part 2 being sorely underwhelming, it's still way better.
Yeah, that's also my least favorite of the series, but it's all of them are good, and I liked them more than any of the Maze Runners.
Joel,
so,
what happened to the actual satisfying conclusions like a Harry Potter's? Like, where are those satisfying conclusions?
Well, people decided to take it way too seriously and actually split them up, and then people got tired of the fact that they were splitting them up.
Exactly.
Because they had Twilight do it, and then Twilight popularized it. And
hey, Twilight, it's all your fault. I hate you.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But that is our examination of the Death Cure. We didn't want to just say, "Oh, it's okay." This is fine. It's like we wanted to go into explicit detail. As to some of the positives, some of the negatives, but I think we did a pretty good job for a story that is super thin. So, what about you guys? What do you guys think of the Death Cure? Do you like the Maze Runner franchise? I'm curious. Please let me know. All right, so we're getting to the box office results now.
Yes, and you have literally one. You have one hint. You want me to give it to you?
Oh, what is it? Is it Wicked? Is it fucking Wicked? That's what I thought. All right.
It's Death Runner the Maze Cure.
Death Runner the Maze Cure. Okay, I absolutely hate Joel this week because I don't... what is this? Because here's the deal, folks. We had Maze Runner come out, and we had a wide release of Hostiles, and that throws me off. Then we have Jumanji probably being number one again for the 100th week in a row. Then we probably have Star Wars lingering in there somewhere. Greatest Showman probably stuck in there. I don't know where to place everything. That's the problem. Okay, number 5. I think it'll be the same as last week. I'm gonna go with The Greatest Showman. Number 4. And that sucks because I don't... Yeah, Phantom Thread was the only one that came out last week, but it didn't really do anything. Then the second week in January wasn't really anything. Okay, I think I'm just going to go with the same again and just swap out the Death Cure for one of them. 5, Greatest Showman. Well, no, because then the Oscar nominations were coming out. One of them might have had a bump. No! Oh, God. Now that just makes everything more confusing. Okay, number 5, Greatest Showman. Number 4, I'll go with Insidious: The Last Key. Number 3, The Post. Number 2, The Death Cure. And number 1, Jumanji again.
Okay, repeat those because you listed them really fast.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
Okay, so basically,
I mean, you got them wrong, but I just was wanting to know
I hate
like
you.
placement.
Oh, I
You
hate you. All right.
know. I love you.
Well, then what was the point of redoing it again?
No. I was to match like what numbers you got wrong and all that. You
No,
you just listed it
you
too
basically
fast.
just said list them again. You're going to embarrass yourself 2 times.
Yes.
Okay. So Greatest Showman, Insidious, The Post, Death Cure, and Jumanji. Just tell me I'm wrong so we can move on, please.
Here. You actually, I mean, you got most of them in there, but it's okay. So Insidious: The Last Key dropped from number 9 to number 15.
Wait, it was number 9 last week?
Yes.
What the hell?
So it made 3.2 million this weekend for a total of 63.5 million.
Oh, good for it.
Worldwide, it's at 144.6, and it's got a $10 million budget.
Good for
So
it.
thank you, America, for watching dumb, terrible movies. All right, so to get into the top 5 then, at number 5 is The Post.
Oh, wow.
Which made 8.9 million. It's up to 58.5 million domestically and 83 million worldwide on a $50 million budget. Kind of struggling. And then number 4 is The Greatest Showman. They actually switched.
Come on.
Yeah, they switched places this week because they were in each other's place last week. It made 9.5 million this weekend for a total domestically of 126.5.
Jeez.
Worldwide, it's at 259.5, and it's got an $84 million budget. So it's made money. Number 3, this is amazing. Rising, 1,658.7%.
Oh, son of a bitch. I know what movie you're going to say.
From number 23 to number 3
Oh, no.
is Hostiles with 10.2 million.
Wow.
It's up to 12 million.
That's impressive.
But it added 2,697 theaters, so I guess that's not hugely surprising. Number 2 is Jumanji.
I'm surprised people went to go see it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I'll probably rent it or something at some point. So number 2 is Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle with 16.4 million for a domestic total of 338.1.
Wow.
And a worldwide total of 822 million. So I blame all of humanity for this because it's got a $90 million budget, and thus we're going to get a sequel to this piece of crap. Sorry, I hate that movie, and I don't understand why people like it. And number 1 is Pitch Perfect 3. I'm just kidding.
God.
Is Maze Runner: The Death Cure with 23.5 million.
Ooh, that's really bad for a third movie like that.
Well, it's got a $62 million budget. Worldwide, it's at 105.5. So
that's not bad.
I think it opened the week before. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe not.
It'll do well in streaming.
Yeah, it's. I mean, worldwide, it's doing pretty well. It's almost double its budget. So, in its first weekend, So I think that's fine. All right. Not a whole lot of news elsewhere. No big drops that I could really speak of. No big rises other than Hostiles. Looks like the Oscar nominations didn't affect a whole lot. The Shape of Water rose from number 16 to number 8. But it added 1,000 theaters, and it rose 160.7%. Let's see. Star Wars dropped out of the top 10. It was number 8 last week. It's number 11 this week. It dropped 36%. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We had a re-release of Get Out this weekend, and it made $170,000. So it's at number 29.
Wow.
Yeah, which is pretty great. So let's see. That's pretty much it, guys. Beats Per Minute, which somehow did not get nominated for Best Foreign Language Film or get even on the short list. Actually showed up at number 46. It was number 96 last week. And it rose 418% to make $1,000 this weekend. So it's up to $98,000. Pretty good for a little movie like that from the Orchard. Let's see. That's pretty much it, guys. That's the news. No big drops, like I said. People went to the movies this weekend. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about this. Like, you mentioned that the Death Cure made a little over 100 million worldwide, and this coming weekend, it really doesn't have much competition, so it could actually probably make its money back and plus some.
I suspect honestly that Maze Runner and Jumanji will repeat.
Yeah.
And that Winchester will be number 3. That's my prediction.
That's probably true. And speaking of Winchester, Joel, that is what we're doing for next week for episode 216, right?
Yes, that is. I know that I promised you guys this week that I would be reviewing Happy End. That did not happen. It ended up only opening in Dallas, and I was not going to make that drive. And I don't have any extra reviews next week for you, so we're only doing Winchester. It'll probably be another pretty light week.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things to where when you open up on Super Bowl weekend, you're probably not going to have much movie news or trailers. So
yeah,
it is. Well, actually, a lot of the Super Bowl trailers sometimes will drop or tease, so at least we have an inkling of what we're getting on Sunday. So that's the excitement, I guess.
Yeah.
But next week,
but we won't even be talking about them because we're recording on Saturday and releasing it Sunday morning, so we won't even know really what they look like yet. So we won't have box office results or anything, just because we're not recording on the right day for that. But we will be reviewing Winchester and talking about whatever breaks.
Yes, and I guess I'll just do this live on air and put Joel on the spot because I just love doing that. Are we going to be talking about the Super Bowl trailers for the next episode then, or is it cool if I did like a separate episode?
We could probably just talk about them in the next episode. I doubt many other trailers will drop.
Okay.
I feel like within the next week we're going to get Mission Impossible, so that's going to be a big one. At least I've been hearing that. I don't know. It's been said to be very soon. I don't know if it's going to be in front of Black Panther or what. But we could probably just talk about those then.
Okay. That sounds good to me. Hey, that's what happens, guys. When you have a co-host, you just work together and you figure out shit. So speaking of the co-host over there, good old Joel. Joel, where can the wonderful people find you online?
You can follow me on Twitter at Real Joel Copling. That's REL, much like my esteemed co-host over there. You can also follow me on Letterboxd at jcopling, and you can find some of my writing at Dallas Movie Screenings. I've got 3 reviews coming next week, which is pretty crazy. For Dallas Movie Screenings and, jointly for my website, joelonfilm.com. In addition to The Death Cure, I reviewed The Final Year, Mom and Dad, and Small Town Crime. You can find out what those are and what I thought of them right now over at joelonfilm.com.
That is correct. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at RealChaseLee. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, which I will have reviews of the ones that Joel is talking about for this coming Friday. It will be on my YouTube channel and it will not be on the podcast. So if you want to know some extra reviews, go for it. And of course, this podcast, please spread it around, comment, do whatever you guys have to do to spread the word around that this is the definitive movie podcast. And also, I wanted to give a plug to Ethos for Film, a movie podcast that is one of the co-hosts is one of my friends I went to college with. And I was a guest on their most recent podcast where they did a versus episode against the remake of The Hills Have Eyes and the remake of Evil Dead. It was a lot of fun, so check that out as well. F is for Film. And, of course, all the stuff that we've been talking about, links in the description below. And we will see you guys next week for episode 216 of Reel Me In, a movie podcast. And, hey, listen, if you made it through this entire movie podcast and you're not a movie fan, well, hopefully we convinced you to be one. You guys are all awesome. Thank you for listening every single week. Joel and I appreciate it. You guys are badass. Peace out. Next week, I'm excited because we get to talk about Helen Mirren in a haunted house, and Helen Mirren is amazing. So we will see you guys next week for that. That will be quite interesting indeed. So peace out, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.